With the upcoming Gauntlet, I wanted to take some time to discuss potential Gauntlet builds. Now, this is Solo Self-Found Arch Nemesis Hardcore Day 3. And you'll notice at the top, Karn Bone Slayer, using Bone Shatter on a Slayer. Steel, using Explosive Arrow on a Hierophant. Waggle, using Fizz Traps, and so on and so forth. The problem is, if you just look here, and if you just look at the very fastest, or very best, or very most successful, or players who put in the most grind, the most time, and get the luckiest, you're going to have a skewed view of things. Most of the players on this list, Karn, Steel, Waggle, Zai, can play almost anything they want highly successfully. What I'm more interested in talking about today are builds that potentially you as a average player, maybe slightly above average player, a Gauntlet curious player, will be able to find success with. A couple things to keep in mind before I get into actual builds is I'm actually going to cross two of the top choices off the list, Explosive Arrow and Spectral Helix. This is because in the Gauntlet, everything has turbo. That means it goes a lot faster, it's a lot more dangerous, and as a result, builds that have kind of acquired taste playstyles, if you haven't played these before, don't do it. If you've played these a lot, you know them inside and out, then you don't really need a build suggestion because you've already got something solid and you should stick with what you know, because it is Gauntlet, it's going to be extremely difficult. Also, before I get into builds, I wanted to take just a minute to call out the fact that 8% of people on the ladder had Gold Rim, 7% had Wanderlust, Karuri Word, Belt of a Deceiver. If you ever want to know what sort of uniques should I look out for at a low level in Gauntlet when I'm farming Arch Nemesis or maybe being terrified and running from them, this list right here, absolutely everything you want to look for. Even Skullhead, great item, fairly low level if I remember correctly. It's got life on it, it's got res on it. It's even got some armor and evasion. But now getting into builds, unfortunately, builds themselves haven't changed all that much in a while, which is a little bit problematic for making a video like this, because I'm not going to be able to say the 5 builds you've never heard of that'll absolutely crush Gauntlet. I'm sure if I put the title and thumbnail of my video to that, I would get twice as many views as I am. And then 10 times as many angry comments as people realize that I'm suggesting the exact same things that they've played before. Like Detonate Dead. As it turns out, Detonate Dead is still an extremely good choice. Play it on a Necro, extremely safe, gonna be very good for Gauntlet. You have those nice Necro defenses, the nice Necro recovery, and more than enough damage. What if you don't want to play Detonate Dead? Well, something that I think didn't get a ton of attention, it had a 1% play rate, but wasn't super out there. You can easily play Wintertide Brand. Occultist has very nice defenses. Let's just grab a random person who is in their 80s. Because I don't think looking at the very top is the most reflective of what you'd want for Gauntlet. And I'm going to look at Hava.Nemesis, because if you're going CI at level 84 in Solo Self-Found Hardcore, you've got a solid amount of knowledge in the class, but you're not the fastest player, you're maybe a little more average, and in this case, a better comparison. So here we've got pretty standard flasks, I'd say. The nice Ellie flasks will be especially important. Watch out for Ignite. You're going to want anti-bleed, anti-poison, anti-ignite as much as you can get it. Anti-ignite right here, anti-bleed. And because this is a CI build, and that's why I selected this, you're immune to poison. Dots are going to be incredibly terrifyingly deadly in this Gauntlet due to the global increased damage. If you want, Shack Central has a great cold dot guide. It's not specifically made for hardcore, definitely not made for Gauntlet, but if you're comfortable adapting it, you should have pretty good success with it. Just a couple of other quick notes. You don't need top tier ES bases. This is a Solaris Circlet. This is a Destroyer Regalia. Archon Kite Shield is actually a top tier base. I don't remember about Soldier Boots. I think they're top tier, but they could be one below. And of course, Sorcerer Hand, or Sorcerer Gloves. I somehow mixed the base and the name up. Sorc Gloves, Sorc Boots, that kind of stuff is ideal if you can get it. Even if you can't, this is enough to farm early maps. The armor is doing a ton of work here. A little splash of evasion is really nice. I bet that feels really good, so you're not taking every hit. The only thing that is missing here is they should be down here at Divine Shield, and they should have a little bit more block. I don't know if actually Glancing Blows is needed. Maybe I could be wrong about that. I haven't pulled this into POB. But looking at this, I think they're a little bit short on block. Wait, does it have a block mod? It doesn't. I don't know. I could be wrong on that part. Definitely get Divine Shield, though. I'm guessing that's what is going to happen by 86. Personally, I would have grabbed it a little earlier, and I would have sacrificed something like this. As well, this is okay damage. It's not amazing, and being not dead is far more important. And yes, this video is going to be a little bit less, well, I guess a little more disorganized or a little less organized than my standard videos. I am just no script talking about things, so there's going to be mistakes. But I feel like this sort of format is a lot more conducive to discussing builds, rather than something where it's rehearsed, practiced, scripted, etc., and it only gives you a little slice of information. This also means I get to ramble on, something that I don't do that often and do quite enjoy. Another build that I expect will be very good in Gauntlet is Righteous Fire Inquisitor. Righteous Fire Inquisitor is nice because you get all the defenses and all of recovery. Remember, your damage scales off your life, so by scaling life, you scale your damage. So here are the Righteous Fire Inquisitors, and I'm going to pick one right here that is not random at all. This is Catmaster. You might know him as Catmaster OP. He does a little bit of solo self-found hardcore, generally knows what he's doing, and he was playing quite a bit of Spicy Inquisitor. Overall, this build is very, very hardcore viable. I suspect it's going to be very good in the Gauntlet. I like the Worm Sign. I like the Death Rush. You don't absolutely need them. The shield, great. I mean, holding a shield, what's better? 35k armor, that's going to feel super nice. Don't be afraid to have multiple life flasks. Again, anti-degen stuff. Luckily, Inquisitor has very, very, very good recovery, so it's going to make it a little bit easier to deal with those degens. The only thing that I would say maybe would be worth changing here, pick up Divine Shield. I think Divine Shield is a super, super underrated passive. It is extremely good. It adds way more defenses than you actually think it does, especially at a time where you really, really need them. I played Righteous Fire Inquisitor. My version was not solo self-found oriented, but the build is extremely solo self-found friendly. The reason I think it's going to excel in Gauntlet, despite being a relatively close-range build, is just the level of defenses and recovery that you can get, where even in Gauntlet, you're going to be able to shield charge. You don't want to go right into the pack. You want to kind of graze the side of a pack. That way, enemies will fire, they'll miss you entirely, you'll shield charge past, and they'll burn to death. One other thing that's really nice about Righteous Fire is you can use a lot of secondary effects. You can use Scorching Ray, like Catmaster is. You can use Flame Wall, or my personal favorite is Fire Trap. And I'm going to just look to see if anyone is doing a Fire Trap one. I'm just going to look at the highest level. Do we have a Fire Trap here? Nope, Scorching Ray as well. All right. Let's see about the highest health one. So it looks like most people in solo self-found hardcore were using Scorching Ray for their links, but I would bet if you search around really carefully down here, you would find some people using Fire Trap. I do think Fire Trap is the way to go, as it has more damage, and it doesn't require you to stand still and channel the way Scorching Ray might. Now, before I move on to the next build suggestion, first of all, if you're still watching, thank you very much. Watch time really does help out get these videos in front of more eyeballs, in front of more people. Something else that helps out is if you leave a like on the video, or if you comment down below letting me know any of your past experiences with the Gauntlet, or why you're deciding to give it a try this time when you haven't played in the past. For more Path of Exile content, be sure to sub to the channel and ring the bell to be notified whenever I upload. And finally, for more gaming content, check out my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts. For now though, back to the rest of the builds. The next thing that I want to talk about is Toxic Rain. That's right. I don't think it will be as good in this Gauntlet as it was last time. The reason I want to talk about it though is if enemies are moving super, super fast, you want something that slows them down. The first build that I talked about Wintertide brand, that slows them down. Second build, RF, doesn't, but you have really good recovery. Here we have Toxic Rain. It's a very beginner-friendly build. I picked it specifically because a lot of people will be familiar with how Toxic Rain plays. I do think Champion is probably the way here, although Raider's also pretty decent. You don't need the most impressive DPS numbers, and these DPS numbers are not necessarily reflective of the build as a whole, because, for example, this is going to be a per totem plus a self-attack, and I bet, yeah, level 19 gems. One thing that I wanted to talk about, though, very quickly, that I see all the time that is wrong. You do not want to have your Toxic Rain Ballistas, which are the majority of your single target damage, with Efficacy, Multiple Totems, Ballista Totem, and Withering Touch. At this point, that's a support skill that does almost no real damage. Then your self-attack requires you to actually be attacking. So what you want to do is treat them the opposite. Treat your self-attack as a support, and your ballistas as the primary damage. So you'd want something like Toxic Rain, Ballista, Efficacy, those are all good. But then you'd want the faster attacks or the void manipulation in here. And your totem placement speed is going to be fast enough that you don't need multiple totems. This is not worth the 22% less damage penalty. Then over here, you've got your Toxic Rain, you've got your Mirage Archer, that's good. Efficacy, also really good. Faster attacks, that's going to feel real nice. You swap Void Manipulation out for Withering Touch. That way you are withering enemies so your totems do more damage, and you have a really nice balance of your own personal DPS that you can use for clear, and totems for single target. Alternatively, if you want to do it a little differently, if you want to clear something that's even smoother, you can use Caustic Arrow. Caustic Arrow with Pierce, or when you get more gear with Arrow Nova, feels really, really, really good. In this case, there aren't even any ballistas. You could very easily put some ballistas in, maybe rely on your Withering Step for Withering, although that's a little bit problematic, and then you'd be in a good spot and have a really nice build. Next up, the last build that I want to talk about that hasn't really gotten that much attention for a long time. If you want to play a melee build, I'm going to say you want to play Earthshatter. And I know that Alex up here, again, I'm not going to look at the best. I'm going to look at something that I think is a little more reflective of the average, because if you're looking to try Gauntlet for the first time, I think this is going to be a little bit more reflective. So let's say this build right here. We've got Earthshatter, two-handed weapon, Berserker. Now, when a lot of people see Berserker, they see this node right here. That node says, take more damage. Well, it says take increased, but it actually means take more, because more and increased are roughly the same thing when they're the only modifier applying to you. So in short, don't do it. You want your nice defenses. Defy pain, yes, you're getting hit for your maximum life occasionally. You're not trying to get hit a ton. I really like the fact that we're going Rage here, and we're going Warbringer, we're Resolute Technique. That all makes sense. This is how you'd build out a Berserker. The idea is you want a Warcry, big boost to your damage. Every time you do, all your spikes explode. If you want the melee playstyle, if you don't mind playing button piano, because you are going to have Enduring Cry, Rallying Cry, Intimidating, maybe a slightly different setup with General's Cry if you're feeling like you're a little short on Warcry cooldown and don't want to piano 3 buttons. I would strongly advise Intimidating, Rallying, Enduring instead. I think they're way more damage. Well, then, here you go. This is the setup for you. It's going to feel more like an MMO and less like an action RPG. And you have Berserk, which is an amazing defensive bonus, and it'll have incredibly high uptime. The nice thing about Earthshatter is you blow up almost the entire screen, which makes it relatively safe for a melee build, which is why Alkaiser was using it and why he was doing so well. Big ol' axe. Not even that big, to be honest, but a solid axe. Same kind of setup. Just get all that defense. Do that impale stuff. Take RT, don't worry about crit, and you're good to go. So those are 4 builds for the Gauntlet that I recommend to people who I would say want to get into it. Maybe you haven't played it before. Maybe you haven't done that well in it before. Of skills on this list, I'm just going to go over a few more quickly. Again, I don't think you should do Explosive Arrow or Helix unless you've played it before, you know what you're doing, you like the skill. Seismic Trap, totally fine. The only reason I didn't talk about it is I'm thinking most people know that Seismic Trap is going to be a pretty good choice for Gauntlet. If you didn't, well, here you go. Seismic Trap, still a pretty good choice. I don't think it needs that much explanation. Absolution, I don't think will be good for Gauntlet. I think it was good for solo stuff on hardcore. In Gauntlet, with a faster, more aggressive, more dangerous enemies, it's going to fall off. Poisonous Concoction, again, kind of the same thing. I don't think it'll be overall that great for Gauntlet. But if you're looking to only map and not fight bosses, maybe it'll be okay. And that's about it from the list. One other thing that I do want to call out, though, I'm going to go to, let's go look at Waggle's character because I suspect he might have it. Yeah. So, located right here. If you are in this part of a tree, you want Earthshatter. Take 50% less damage over time if you started taking damage over time in the past second. You need to have a way to deal with Ignite. You need to have a way to deal with Poison. They're going to last a really long time if you don't. But if you have a way to deal with those things, this is a very good choice to have, because Earthshatter will make sure that you don't get insta-gibbed by Burning Ground. You don't get insta-gibbed if there's a bleed on you and you're not instantly immune. Very strong defensive. I would absolutely try to work it into as many builds as possible, especially given the global damage modifier on this Gauntlet rather than Fizz's Extra. If something had Fizz's Extra and it puts a bleed on you, well, only the Fizz damage is applying the bleed. Now, everything from the damage bonus, the 100% increased, applies to that bleed, which makes it much, much scarier. We are going into one of the scariest gauntlets we've seen, but I don't think it's the sort of thing where it's impossible to have fun. I don't think it's the sort of thing where it's impossible to try it out. Don't be too intimidated. Expect to die. Take things slowly. Over-level on zones. If you're 5 or even 10 levels above a zone, that's totally fine. If you spend a bunch of time farming around Tidal Island for some early uniques, then you go slowly, go steadily, go patiently, you'll do really well in the Gauntlet, and you may even surprise yourself when you reach maps. The Gauntlet often cut. Much like Dark Souls, the Gauntlet might seem like an intimidating thing, a feat for the truly hardcore, but at the end of the day, if you go into it with a little patience, go into it with a learning mentality, and try to check your ego at the door, I think you'll be able to have a good time. Because just like Dark Souls, the Gauntlet has a lot of ways where it reminds you you're probably not quite as good as you think you are, no matter how good you are. So with that, I hope you found this useful. I wish you the best of luck in Gauntlet, and feel free to share your experiences down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to put them down in the comments below, or join the Discord, where you can ask questions, get build help, and hang out with the community. A special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. They're awesome, and they get to show it by having their name on screen in the credits of all my videos. So if you want to see your name here, be sure to check the link in the description. For more general gaming content, check out my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts, and if you want a water bottle or a cool shirt, I have a link to my official merch shop in the description. I hope you learned something today, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.